Hello, my name is Andy and I am the Village Idiot. I'm armed with a car and a GoPro and an unhealthy amount of time on my hands. I'm using that time to attempt to visit every civil parish in England. You're watching the East Lindsey series. This is the biggest district in Lincolnshire, containing 188 civil parishes. Without further ado, here's today's offering. Just when you thought the weather had started to improve for this year, it then goes and does this again. It's absolutely lobbing it down this morning, and I've got 5 villages to cover. I'm not looking forward to this in the slightest, but I'm still going to put them on the map because that's the kind of crazy stuff I do. Welcome back to East Lindsey, everybody, to a very small place which feels like it's in the middle of nowhere. We'll see exactly what it's got as we walk around. Its name is Fulstow. The East Lindsey series is sponsored by Gainsborough Cycles, 01427 617 752. For all your cycling needs, this is your one-stop shop, located at 20 Ropery Road, Gainsborough, or online at gainsboroughcycles.com. There's a link in the description. Gainsborough Cycles, ask for Trevor Halstead. Here's my disclaimer for people who may be watching me for the first time. I say things as I would in my native accent and dialect. As a result, I may not pronounce things in the same way as the locals do. Remember, I'm a visitor. It's impossible to know everything. Leave me a comment, spin me a like, and bash that subscribe button. Let's get to today's parish video. Fulstow, Bird's Place. This week in East Lindsey, we're in a place called Fulstow, which is a pretty big village for the area it lies in. Once again, we're on the Lindsey Marsh, once a vast expanse of marshland that sat between the Lincolnshire Wolds and the North Sea, before it was reclaimed and turned into arable farmland. Fulstow's name may be a sideways reference to the marsh, but nobody is really sure. It means Bird's Place, which makes you think of the many varieties of marsh wader which would have populated the wetlands once upon a time. Fulstow is centred around one street upon which all the main village facilities were and still are located. There are only 2 exceptions to that rule. Firstly, the church, which is located a ways north of the village cluster, seemingly all on its own. It actually lies in a separate hamlet called Churchthorpe, which is practically conjoined to Fulstow these days. The other exception is the playing field, which lies between the two. It's there where Tetney's football club play these days, after having moved from their home village to Fulstow a few years ago. Fulstow's features include 2 pubs, although one is now closed. There's a village hall, a nursery, a school, and at least one thatched cottage. Oh, and if you know where to go, there's also a field of llamas too. Interesting. Let's hit the road. We start on Mill Way, which takes its name from a 19th century windmill that stood south of the village and was demolished in the early 1970s. Our first main landmark comes in the form of a pub called the Cross Keys. Fulstow used to have 2 pubs, but today the Cross Keys is the only one that remains. Historical records show Fulstow can lay claim to a third too, called the Ship Inn, but it was a ways away on Firebeacon Lane. A banner on the wall here says "Say No." It's a reference to Pylons. There are some plans to construct power lines from Grimsby across Lincolnshire to Walpole in Norfolk. On the opposite corner is the old post office and general store. This was still operating until 2010, but a year later it was closed and in a derelict state. It's now a private house, which blends in nicely with the rest of Main Street. Most of Fulstow's facilities and amenities are on this road, including the village hall. This was built in the 1980s and is used for many community functions. A further extension was added in 2005 to house a new snooker room, a dressing room, a fixed stage and a lighting rig. Unlike many other village halls, Fulstow's is self-funding and not parish council controlled. This stone tablet is a war memorial commemorating those lost in World War I and II. It's ideally sited because the hall replaced a wartime Nissen hut, which was used previously. Let's get the parish marked off that East Lindsey list, shall we? With Fulstow done, we're down to 156. No sweat, I'll have them all done in no time. Over the road is a former primitive Methodist chapel which dates from 1836. At 26 feet wide by 36 feet long, it was the largest and longest lasting of the 3 Methodist chapels once present in the village. A Sunday school was added in 1886 and didn't close until 2008. Okay, so for the most part, the main street here in Fulstow is all residential. There's some houses with some interesting names. That one behind me there has the name of Ellen Vannin, and you might recognise that if you've ever been to the Isle of Man, because that is the Manx name for the Isle of Man. Fun fact for you there. So, let me show you where I'm going. We're heading this way, along Main Street, down here. You can see it's all houses. We sort of follow this now until we get to a turning, and then we're going to head up onto a path which will take us up towards the church. Yes, it is all residential now, but one of the properties here was the other pub. It was called the Lord Nelson, and it still bears its signage from the days when it was pulling pints. It closed in 1969, and now it's a private dwelling. Business and industry-wise, Fulstow has had a few rural-themed occupations over the centuries. We already know about milling, but sheep rearing was one of the most important on both the Lindsey Marsh and the Lincolnshire Wolds. Wool from the Lincolnshire longwool sheep was highly prized by foreign merchants, and many came to Louth via Saltfleet Haven. Fulstow still has a lot of farms. Here's one such example. This is New Haven Farm, who do a good line in eggs according to this sign. Up the track that leads to it, you'll see an early 18th century mud and stud cottage with a thatched roof. Easily the most visually pleasing house here, it's listed grade 2. Of course, Fulstow, along with many other villages here, would have had many more, but now only that one remains. To build them, mud from the surrounding area was mixed with chopped straw and then plastered onto lathes. While still damp, the walls were painted with a lime wash to waterproof them. The other main industry out here was salt making, which makes sense given that this is a marsh village. Nearby Covenham, though, was considered the centre of that trade. Businesses here now include this little nursery where Main Street bends north towards Churchthorpe. It's a cracking little setup they've got here, and it's well worth a look. Now for the hardest part of the walk. After passing the nursery, you'd be forgiven for thinking the place has come to an end. It hasn't. We can follow a footpath here which runs over a stream, through a field, and then through a small wood. But it's not plain sailing, let me tell you. Well, this is going to be fun. I'm already soaked on my bottom half because I've had to walk through all that long grass. Now, to follow the footpath, I've got to get over what looks like a little stream, and there's no bridge. So, bear with me here. I could get even more soaked here. Hopefully this isn't deep, because if it is, I could be up to my bloody neck in it. Let's see. Let's have a look. Deep enough. Deep enough. Right, okay. I have to jump it, I think. So, yeah, I'm going to put the camera down, and, yeah, you can see the way marker there. That's what I'm aiming for. It's not a big jump. If you practice the long jump when you were in school, it certainly comes in handy at this point, doesn't it? Okay, we're over the stream, and almost instantly, I got treated to this. I'm in a field which is occupied by these beautiful animals, llamas. I'm going to walk past them very slowly because I don't want to disturb them or frighten them. I'm still genuinely on the footpath here, so I've got every right to be here. Look at them. How many are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I count 9, maybe 10. Lovely animals, love llamas. Although seemingly timid, the llamas did actually follow me for a while as I made my way through the next gate. They really are wonderful creatures, aren't they? Now we're on Caswell Crescent, and if you watch the recent Tetney episode, you'll be familiar with that name already. The Caswell family have farmed this area of Lincolnshire for centuries, and still do in places. We're on Northway now, which literally leads north towards a separate hamlet called Churchthorpe, where Fulstow's church is located. The two settlements are pretty much continuous these days, owing to a series of new builds. Next, we have Fulstow's primary school, which was opened by an H. Allenby of Kenwick Hall and was built in 1866 with funds raised by public subscription. It replaced an original school present in Fulstow by 1842. Originally a national school, this became Fulstow Primary in 1940, and pupils over the age of 11 went to Waltham, to what is now Tolbar Academy. The 1800s was a dark time for education out here. Many children were ill and died, whilst others simply did not attend. Mind you, they were kept busy. In those days, children were expected to help on the land, harvesting crops. Now we come to the church, a Grade II listed Anglican building dedicated to St Lawrence. It originates from the 13th century and is early English in style, but little of the original church remains today. Well, it has, after all, had a bit of a storied past, this one. In 1615, some repairs were carried out, but during the 1720s, the tower collapsed. Later, in 1867, part of the church wall collapsed too, but it was rebuilt a year later. You have to applaud the effort to keep this one going, don't you? The churchyard also features a cross shaft. This one has no definitive date, but it's almost certainly pre-16th century. Here's one for all you football-loving groundhoppers out there. This'll be a good one to tick off. Between Churchthorpe and Fulstow there's a playing field, and this is where Tetney Rovers Football Club play their home games. They play in red and black and are members of the Lincolnshire League. Here's a bit of trivia to finish. In 1901, the Times newspaper referred to Fulstow as Britain's most lawless village due to its history of drunken violence and self-policing, given its secluded geographical location. I think it's safe to say, over a century on, it's definitely changed its ways. Well, hopefully you can hear what I'm saying here, because usually when the rain's this intense, it tends to block up the microphone on the camera and it tends to go all muffled. So hopefully you can hear me at this point. I am absolutely soaking wet through. I do have a change of clothes though, thankfully. I'm just hoping that the weather doesn't do this in the next village. So hopefully it stops. We're around Fulstow anyway, and I do hope you've enjoyed it despite the rain. And yeah, lovely village to put on the East Lindsey map with all the others. And there you have it, people. We have been to the parish of Fulstow. Let's move on to the south now and head deeper into East Lindsey. Fulstow can be considered quite a big village in fairness. Next week, I'm going to show you what life is like in the much more sparsely populated parts of Lindsey Marsh. See you there. Thanks for watching this video, folks. Don't forget to like this episode if you haven't already. It really makes a difference with YouTube. If you're new here, subscribe to the channel for more videos like this, and give us a share too if you've got friends who'd like it. You can find all the links to my social media accounts below, as well as my Buy Me a Coffee page where you can donate to the channel. Also, if you've enjoyed this episode, have a look at some more videos in this series. Until next time, I've been Andy, also known as the Village Idiot, and I'm out.